nervous because I'm here now.
Welcome to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell here with my co-host Glenn Martin with some news. The NFL news has been sparse, but as things have been heating up and getting closer to training camp and the season, things are starting to come through the wire. So the Jets, it's official. They've traded the highly disgruntled star and defensive back Jamal Adams to the Seattle Seahawks. So they traded, just to give the quick details, Jamal Adams, along with a 2022 fourth-round pick, to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for safety Bradley McDougald, a first-round pick, a third-round pick in 2021, and a first-round pick in 2022. That's according to Ian Rappaport. So that is a haul that they got for him, and really big news, and crushes our dreams of ever taking him from the Jets' grasps. So, Glenn, what is it about the finances, what about the finances are involved in this conversation?
Yeah, so he's got 2 years remaining on his deal if you include his fifth year. He has a cap number of just over $7.1 million this season and $9.8 million next season. So relatively cheap when you consider what you're getting in return, at least for the first two seasons. Now, certainly after those two seasons, that price tag is going to go up, and there's no reason to expect Seattle to not be the team paying him because they just gave up 2 first-round picks to go get him. So you don't do that for just 2 seasons. So obviously they anticipate and may already have some sort of a handshake agreement on some sort of a long-term deal, but that's going to be an expensive price tag. Because I believe when this initially broke, when he initially demanded his trade, he was requesting somewhere near $20 million a season.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot for any position outside of quarterback, but certainly a lot for safety. So my question, I guess, is, let me break down why he left, okay? Because he was obviously disgruntled. Apparently he said that the front office questioned his desire to play in May in a conversation, said that they wanted to monitor whether he was all in with the Jets and all in on football.
Why?
I know. And Adams found it incredibly insulting because, he feels that, he busts his ass for the organization. He said it was very insulting. He said, I bust my ass for that organization every day. I work my ass off. For them to say that to me, I was like, okay, whoa, that was a little bit too far, end quote. So he was obviously taken aback, but then he went a little bit further, a little bit later in discussing his head coach, Adam Gase, and being quite critical. He said, I quote, "I don't feel he's the right leader for this organization to reach the promised land. As a leader, what really bothers me is that he doesn't have a relationship with everybody in the building. At the end of the day, he doesn't address the team. If there's a problem in the locker room, he lets another coach address the team. If we're playing shitty and we're losing, he doesn't address the entire team as a group at halftime. He'll walk out of the locker room and he'll let another coach handle it." Unquote. I mean, so obviously he was not happy as a Jet, and he forced his way out. So with every team knowing that he wants out of there, so do you think that they still – I mean, you look at this haul, everyone knew that he wanted out of there. So everyone knew that they had to trade him, but yet they were still able to get a pretty impressive haul. I mean, was this the best they could have done?
Yeah, I think so. And while it is the best, they could have done, I really think it's a win-win. I think that's the first part to analyze, right? And the deal is did the Jets get all they could? And I think that they can feel very good about their return for the future, not for the near future, of course, but for the, looking ahead a couple years. You got one eye in the future and one eye in the present, right? So that eye in the future is really what is, the ruling hand at the end of the day when it comes to this deal, because they didn't get much as far as their return now.
Right.
But getting 2 first-rounders for a guy, at least, you and I have been around an organization that values first-rounders, and this is no knock on Jamal Adams. I just think this is how much the Ravens value draft picks. I don't think we would have given one.
Right.
That's just my hunch, no insider information. I just think so to get 2, I think is awesome for a guy that's not happy anyway. But the other thing I will say, based on your comments, I've always felt that way about Adam Gase. If I'm not mistaken, he has family in the NFL somewhere. I can't remember if it's like his father-in-law or something of that nature. But it is a complete mystery to me. It is a complete mystery to me how he is a head coach. I guess I could understand like an OC somewhere, like I
He
don't know.
doesn't seem like a face of the organization type
No, he's
guy.
not a leader of men at all.
Right.
I think it's extremely obvious, right?
Yeah.
So I can't blame Adams, who wants to be coached hard. And I'll also say this: he's gonna love Pete Carroll.
Oh
I
my
mean,
goodness. Typical player coach right there.
absolutely. I mean, Pete's gonna ride for this guy, be on his side, coach him hard, expect a lot out of him. So it's gonna be interesting, man. What do you think? Do you think they got the most that they could?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess the question is how many teams were bidding. How many teams were in the Adams bidding? How many teams were trying to go get him? And that could be what kind of raised the price. They could have had a couple teams on the hook that both were competing for him, and that's the best deal that any team came to the table with. But I mean, it's just surprising anytime a team's willing to give up 2 first-round picks. I mean, it's shocking. But the way I look at it is, and I think this is the way Seattle's looking at it, is as long as you win, then it's worth it. So they probably look at this as, look, Russ, he's still a great, great player. But, he's getting a little older now. He's still not being affected by his age to this point. But they got to think they have a window here. They got to think that their window isn't, completely wide open. He's in his 30s now. So I think that this is a good move for both. Like you mentioned, I think Joe Douglas is in the front office for the Jets now, formerly of the Ravens, and I think he certainly learned a few things, because to get 2-1s when everyone knows you have to trade the guy is good. But at the same time, from the Seattle standpoint, this puts them back up there to compete with San Francisco. Right now, I think everyone picked San Fran to win that division, but now I'm not so sure, because he's such a talented player, and you put him around some really good players on that defense. Let me just break down some of the players he's going to be playing with because they're good. I mean, you look at their linebacking core with obviously Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, everyone knows, but I think maybe people forget that they drafted Jordan Brooks out of Texas Tech, who obviously they felt was even better than the Ravens' Patrick Queen because they had first crack at it. So he's going to be playing with certainly good guys up front, and then also next to him and around him. They just traded for Quadri Diggs last year, and he played lights out for them when he was playing. So he was phenomenal. You got Griffin on one side, Dunbar on the other. I think that this could make this defense a whole heck of a lot better. The thing about Adams is he's so good in different areas. He's an excellent blitzer. He's good in coverage, and he's good in against the run. He's not a single-dimensional player. He's multi-dimensional. So, and not to mention his incredible youth and all that all that stuff that comes with him. So I think it's a great signing or a great trade for both teams. And yeah, it's a win-win.
And there's something that you forgot to mention as far as players. They still have a shot to resign Jadeveon Clowney. I mean,
absolutely.
We see that in the news all the time, that the longer this goes, the more and more likely it seems to be that he can end up back in Seattle, which, you add him to that mix and
you got Bruce Irvin on the other side. Then we haven't even talked about the additions on offense. Right. I mean, they bring in Greg Olsen at tight end. I mean, he's a little long in the tooth, but I think he's still got some play left in him. And then they bring in Carlos Hyde to back up, Chris Carson and Rashad Penny, who are coming off injury. And people forget Carlos Hyde went for over 1,000 with the Texans. So, yeah, good quality pickups. We already know what they have on the outside with Metcalf and Lockett. So, yeah, be careful. And then Philip Dorsett, he's a speedster they brought in. So
we wanted to pick him up. That was your guy in the offseason, man.
Yeah, I like what he can bring for what he is. I mean, he's not going to come in and be a 1-2, but you put him out there as a 3 or 4 with that speed and with Russ running around and buying time. I think they could have some home run plays.
Absolutely. That's gonna be a really intriguing one. You're really selling me on the idea of them winning the NFC West. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's gonna be fun to watch. So. The other thing I want to know, Glenn, we've talked about the return and things like that, is that how do you think so before I ask you this question, let me just let you know that following that, Le'Veon Bell sent out a tweet, and he essentially said, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but he essentially was trashing Adams for recruiting him and then being the first one to say, I'm out of here, right? Yeah. It kind of seemed to me like he was saying he was disloyal and not, a part of the squad and this, that, and the other. And so my question to you is this, and it actually refers to Adam Gase. Do you think that Adam Gase just doesn't care about defense? As far as building relationships with his players, and because Le'Veon seems to be a guy that apparently feels really good around Adam Gase and enough to say things like this and where he's comfortable in the organization. But Adams has the exact opposite experience. Do you think that has something to do with it?
It's a good question because, I was surprised to see Le'Veon tweet this because typically players support each other, so it makes you question. It makes you wonder what's Le'Veon's what's the motive for this? And I think it could be that he knows that his team just got a whole lot worse in the short term, and he knows that any running back's career is relatively short. That's why he held out when he did to guarantee some money, and now he knows he's another year at least further, maybe 2 years further away from being competitive and being relevant in the league. So maybe he's salty about that. Maybe they were friends. But look, the way I look at it is if you're Jamal Adams in the NFL, above all sports, it's the shortest career, the shortest average career, even for great players. So unless you're a quarterback or a kicker, I guess. But so you have to be somewhat selfish in a way. You have to, and sometimes that involves kind of forcing your way out of a bad situation, which I don't think anyone would disagree with the fact that the Jets aren't probably set up for a great run the next couple of years.
No, they're the new Browns.
Yeah, I mean they don't look like they have a great. They look like they're doing okay in the front office. I'm a Joe Douglas guy, but
like ownership though. Ooh.
Yeah, they had some recent tweets that came out or something
pretty questionable as far as commitment and things like that.
Yeah, so but and then Gase, you look at Gase. I don't think he's a good leader of men. I don't think he's a good head coach, and obviously he's not a good interpersonal communicator. That Jamal Adams got to this point, so I think he did what he had to do. He got to a better organization. He got to a player-friendly coach. He got to an organization that's ready to compete, that has a quarterback who's top 3 in the league. I think it was smart for him to do that, even though he may have rubbed a couple teammates the wrong way on his way out.
Yeah, too bad, so sad, right? At the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Now, this is the other question. Who won in this scenario and who lost?
Well, as I said, I think it's a win-win. I think they didn't have a choice at this point. So, maybe if you asked me a few months ago if they could turn the clock back that far before he was disgruntled, maybe I would say different. But once he was disgruntled and made it clear that he wanted out, this is the best they could have done. And Seattle just put themselves up in the conversation for the NFC, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I do think, generally speaking, it's a win-win. But if you dig into the weeds a little deeper, I think that at the end of the day, for me, if I had to pick one, I give it to Seattle because the late great Dr. Buss, what's his name, Kellerman, who's on First Take all the time? Max Kellerman always talks about how 5 nickels don't or 5 quarters don't make a dollar when you're making trades, right? Like 5 quarters don't equal a dollar, and so the chances of them with those 2 picks getting a guy as good as Jamal Adams, right, might be slim to none. Yeah, they're high picks, and they're probably going to be good picks, but he's just a special talent. I mean, he's that. He is,
but if they don't, I don't think that this guarantees them their division. I don't think anyone would be shocked to see San Fran still win that. So if they still don't end up winning, and they only get Adams on the relatively cheap for 2 years, and then now they have to pay him 18 to 21 million, then is it necessary? So I guess we don't know. I don't think we know until we see the results. I don't think if they go out and miss the playoffs, I don't think it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if he just leaves town after the end of next year.
After 2 years, exactly. I mean? If he prices himself out even.
Right. So, there's definitely that piece to it. But I think that the likelihood of the Seattle Seahawks, when you look back on this deal, having the best individual player in the trade, having acquired the best individual player, probably pretty likely, I guess, is my general point. But I totally see what you're saying, too. It's inconclusive at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be an interesting one. It was big news when it hit. I was pretty shocked by it, and shocked and not shocked that it was Seattle. But what do you guys think? I want to know, are you guys sad that it wasn't the Ravens? And one other thing that, Glenn, that you brought up, and I'll give you a chance here to speak on it if you want. It seems like there was some bidding, or else they wouldn't have gotten such a haul, right?
Yeah.
Do you think the Ravens were in? I mean, if you had to guess, do you think the Ravens were in that little bidding war, if there was one, right? We're all acting under assumptions here, but.
Yeah, I don't think they were in it, only because you mentioned their value on first-round picks is extremely high. And now you're talking about 2 first-round picks. That's 5 years of cheaper service. And yeah, it's not a guarantee to get a player like him. It's about a 50-50 shot, actually, to draft a really good player in the first round. I think it said a 40% chance. But But yeah, I just would be shocked to see, and not just that, but when you think the Ravens have the most money committed to their secondary in the league already, so now you're bringing another guy, even though he's still in his rookie deal, he's still as a safety making 7.1 as a cap hit. That's still not crazy cheap. So yeah, not with paying Earl 13 mil. We just extended Chuck Clark. I would be shocked to hear that they were linked to it, but. Obviously, there was another team, so I don't know who that team would be. I mean, if I just tried to,
probably the Jaguars.
It could have been San Francisco. I mean, you look at San Francisco; they could have used the safety to add to that secondary, and that would make an awful lot of sense as to why the bidding got as high as it did, because you got two teams in the same division competing for one heck of an All-Pro safety.
Yeah, my mind went right to Jacksonville for some reason.
Well, if Jacksonville did that, would be pretty silly considering they're in a rebuild.
But it's normal Jacksonville, right? Come down here, get paid, retire,
There you go.
But guys, let us know what you think. Do you like the trade? Who won the trade? Did the Seattle Seahawks overpay? Either way, I agree that the Jets got a haul. So let us know what you think. Also, take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button. We are right up on the cusp and appreciate all the support. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here before the end of July, hopefully. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.